Welcome back, pet parents. Today's episode has been a while in the making, and I could not be more excited to introduce you to Charlie and Larry Pruden from Pawdega. Pawdega is a online holistic and natural pet wellness store that has locations now in the USA as well as Dubai, and they ship worldwide, which is incredible for people who don't have access to things locally because we don't all have access to things locally. And one of the things that's really cool about this is just how much they take the time to put into sourcing products that are truly natural and holistic. So let me get Charlie and Larry on the show for you guys. Thank you both so much for being here and working around your schedules, traveling all over the world. I just appreciate you two so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're super excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited that this finally worked out.
Yeah. So, okay, Pawdega. I have seen you guys online for years and was so interested, but honestly, for the longest time, I'm like, oh, well, they're in Dubai. Like, I don't, what am I doing paying attention to this, right? And
Yeah,
you guys recently opened a location where you're shipping in the USA now. And I'm just really curious. We're going to talk about a lot today. We're going to talk about Paldega. We're going to talk about how you go about like deciding what products you carry. Of course, we're going to talk about Milka, who everybody, if they follow you guys, wants to know about, and traveling and all the things. But I would just love to hear kind of that origin story. Like, why did you guys start Pawdega? What inspired you to create this kind of business, especially one that's focused so heavily on, fresh food and natural supplements? Because this is, I mean, it's growing, but it's still pretty niche.
absolutely. Yeah, so of course, our dog inspired us. She was the original inspiration. But as like so many pet parents get into or get interested in holistic health because their pets at some point were sick, right? So this is what also happened with Milka when she was a puppy. We had just moved to Dubai. And there was a lot of changes for her in the environment, obviously with food, and she just kept like being very sick. She kept throwing up. And I remember there being, she also had a lot of like hot spots and diarrhea and things like that. So I remember there being like 1 week where she woke us up in the middle of the night, like for 5 nights in a row, just throwing up. You know, every pet parent wakes up when that sound comes, right? So, yeah, and we just were at a point where we're like, it's not working what we're doing. Like, we've just been switching from premium kibble to the next. And, the vets all said they don't know what's wrong with her. We're feeding great food. We're doing all the right things. Like, they just couldn't help us. So, at that point, we had a friend who kept telling us about raw food and we should just try it. And we were very apprehensive at the time because our vets were telling us not to do it. So at some point we were like, you know what we're doing isn't working. So let's just try this raw food. So, and we did it. We switched her kind of from one, like we did a slow transition, but it was quite fast for her. And she was just like a different dog. There was no more throwing up. There was like slowly all her other issues went away. The hot spots never came back. And we were just like left feeling like, holy moly. Like, what just happened? Like, why? Like, why are all the vets telling us not to do this when this was the thing that made our dog so much better and reduced all our vet bills? Because our vet bills were really high back then.
Hmm.
Although we were spending less money on food back then, we spent all that money on vet bills. And now we're kind of like spending a lot less money in general because we just don't do a lot of vet visits anymore. And that kickstarted our journey as to like our interest in holistic pet health. And
Hmm.
from there, it just spiraled into like, okay, now let's look into natural flea and tick treatment. Let's look into natural shampoos. Let's look into supplements. What's gut health all about? And all these things that just gradually, yeah, sparked our interest into learning more and more and more. And we wanted to share all of that. So
Hmm.
we're always very interested in sharing things with other people. And back then it was really just like, just this We just couldn't believe that like nobody was talking about it back
It
then.
felt like nobody was talking about it.
Exactly. So we just started sharing Milka's journey on her Instagram account back then. And that again just spiraled into more and more pet parents, specifically in Dubai and the UAE, asking us for help. And we started, suggesting certain things to them, like get these probiotics from Adore Beast, for example. But nobody would do it because it's just so far away, and like you have to import the products into Dubai as a customer, and it's quite expensive. And that just turned into us realizing, okay, if we actually really want to help other people, we need to bring these products into the UAE. And that just went into like, we knew that if we were going to open a wellness store, we'd want that store to be the safest place where pet parents can come to, because at the same time, we were very fed up with going to a pet store and taking like 8 hours or longer to like, just stand there and be like
Research ingredients.
researching, and we're just not sure what's actually safe. It says natural on the front of the bag, but when you turn it around, you barely understand any of the ingredients. So we're just like very fed up with that. And we knew that if we were going to open a pet store, then we would make sure that it's the safest pet store, and pet parents don't have to worry about all of the ingredients that could potentially harm their pets.
Oh my goodness. I think so many of us are on this journey because one or more of our pets was sick. I know, like, that really wasn't even the case for me. I did have a sick dog, but I didn't like equate improving her food to improving her health. I just was like, I think I was just being motherly and like wanting to do more, and started cooking food for her. And it was just like one day I looked at my husband and I'm like, my gosh, like when was the last time Claire had a seizure?
Mm.
It was amazing to start learning these things. But what you were just talking about, Charlie, with like the front of the bag says natural. I've recently started talking about this on the live version of the podcast with a couple of different guests. The greenwashing, and it's
Yeah.
happening in every industry, of course, but in the pet industry, it just makes it so much harder for
hmm
pet parents to really find good products.
hmm
So
Yeah.
I am curious, how do you guys go about selecting the products and the brands that you carry? Like what, and this is a big question, I know, but like, can you talk about some of the standards that you guys have for when you do vet a product to decide, are we going to bring this in to our shop or not?
Yeah, so like one of the first things that we do is really check for brand credibility. So we look at the brands. Is it a reputable brand? Then we start looking at each product. Then we look at the ingredients of those products to see, okay, do they even fit within our store? And then going beyond that, then we ask these brands, how do they source their products? Like, are their ingredients ethically sourced? And then we move beyond that as well. Then we check for individual reviews, like what do actual people say about these products? So we want people to give their honest feedback so we can make a decision on whether or not we would stock the product, so we can also help the people that shop with us as well.
And I just want to add to that, like the most important thing for us is that it's not just safe for pets to consume, but also like sniff or be exposed to. Like with toys, for example, like it's very important that like just the dogs are going to sniff the toys, for example. Are they going to inhale toxic chemicals when they sniff the toy? Like it's
Or
a
chew on the
product,
toy.
or chew on the toy. Yeah, it's a product that they don't necessarily consume. But even with things like that, it's very important to really do a lot of research into what the products are made of and what consequences these ingredients or materials have on our pet's body. Larry kind of tried to really simplify it, but like this process takes days, if not weeks sometimes.
Mhm.
And we do it for every single product. We don't just say, okay, this brand is generally safe, so we bring in all of their products. We actually really look at every single product of a brand, because like some brands do have some products that we wouldn't bring in, and then we don't bring them in. So it really depends on a case by case basis on the product. And it's really important for pet stores to not just read ingredients, but really understand the impact that the ingredients have, because we've heard other pet stores say things like, oh yeah, I read every ingredient before I bring in a product, but that's not enough. You need to understand the ingredient, what it is, and what the impact of it is.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, and I think it's one of those things with where you have a store and you have to make money to keep that store
Mhm.
open. And so I talk to a lot of people who have like brick and mortars here in the States, and it's kind of all over the place as to how they choose the products that they bring into their shop. And some of them, they're like, well, we got to pay the bills, so we still stock these products that
Yeah.
maybe they might not even feed to their animals or give to
Mhm.
their animals to play with. And it's like, I mean, I get that you have to keep the doors open, but also like, I think that's such a hard thing to
Yeah.
do, to make those decisions. Like because there are definitely stores that will not stock anything that they won't feed their own pets,
Mhm.
and they can keep their doors open. So there's this. I'm very curious, like your
Yeah.
perspective on this part of it, because again, at the end of the day, it's a business, but it's a mission driven business as well. And so, kind of
Mhm.
balancing that, how you guys see that.
Man, this is such a great question because I think right now, especially as we're traveling through different countries and we're seeing like what like income levels of the people and their wealth, and you can see it's so hard because like as you said, people got to pay their bills, but from our side, I think we have, I don't know, maybe it's our geographical location of where our businesses are located. I believe that the people that shop with us have the ability to afford. The thing about natural products is generally they are more expensive, and raw pet food is going to be more expensive than kibble.
I think because your question is regarding the business owners. So I think first of all, we are very grateful that we're able to stick to our values, because it definitely isn't easy. So I definitely understand. I think it's great if these business owners are honest about it, what you just said, that they're honest about, like, hey, I do have to keep the lights on, and I do need to sell some products that I don't maybe necessarily agree with 100%, but I have to do it to keep the lights on, to keep my business running. And that might still be better than like they're still offering a lot of other nice natural
Yes.
things to their audience. So that's still better than closing the shop down, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there are a lot of pet owners that we have seen, especially in the UAE after we popped up, that started using our words, but they weren't honest about them not checking. So that's what we were referring to earlier. So that's like, there's a difference between being honest and your customers knowing what they're coming to your store for, and then there's the difference of not being honest, but trying to look like an all natural, all safe store, right? So there's these two differences. But I think when it comes to like really, like our store, for example, for us, it has been very important for us to really continuously educate our audience, which again isn't easy, but to like just reiterate why people are coming to us, because we're the safe space, because we are, we're kind of making our own life harder by only offering completely safe and non-toxic products. but we're continuously telling our audience about that, and they know that when they shop with us. So yeah, that's kind of the way that we are able to continue to operate, because our audience really appreciates that about us. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would
Would you
say.
add anything to that?
No, you said it much better than what I was trying to say. Yeah, I think it's just it is hard, because I don't want to judge anybody out there, selling, products that I wouldn't necessarily agree with or sell. But I understand bills got to get paid, and just as you said, it's better to offer some great things than no great things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Charlie, you mentioned where I was going next with the other part of this business. You're not just providing products, you are educating consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And I know so many people get so overwhelmed with even the tiniest little bit of information coming into this space, whether it is for their pets or even for themselves. Like when you try to start educating yourself on more natural, holistic options, you're like, wait a minute, this is how we've been doing this forever and ever and ever. And how do we not know about this? All of a sudden, in the last 100 years, we've all forgotten how quickly, actually, we all forgot about all of it. But it is a huge part of what you do. How do you guys go about educating people and maybe helping them manage some of that overwhelm, especially when they encounter a shop like yours where they may be like, none of this looks familiar to me. Where do I start?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great question. We've always been very big on education and raising awareness, just because we like from a very beginning we just were so passionate about this whole topic, and we were just like, how could vets not talk about it? How could this be such an unfamiliar thing to most regular pet parents, right? Because also we were first time pet parents actually. So yeah, we just right from the start started diving into social media and just sharing Milka's journey. But along the way, we've worked with some of the world's most renowned holistic and integrative vets and health experts.
Yeah, and really amplifying their voices too.
Exactly. So, and now we have the podcast Next Level Pet Parent, which also is just an amazing platform for us to share not just our story and our like Milka's journey, but again, like interview experts and just share like their journeys as well. And I think it always also comes back to showing pet parents like just go one step at a time. There's so much information out there and it's so easy to get overwhelmed, and we've been there for sure. But it's always important to just prioritize. Think about, okay, these are the 5 things that I eventually want to implement. Let me start with one thing and start there. And once I got that going, I start with the other things. And I think something that's very important for me always is to find ways to implement things that are actually going to be implemented in a way where I can go through with something. So, like, I need to somehow find the best way to implement something in the most convenient way so that I can actually manage it on my daily life, right? So, like, if I know I don't know, if I know I'm going to use supplements in Milka's food, I'm going to put them on my kitchen counter so that I don't have to take them out of the drawer every single time I use them, because I know I'm going to forget about it, right? So just little things like that to make it easier to implement the things that we actually want to do. I found that very helpful. How about you?
Yeah, for me, I think it's about being practical about the stuff about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that hits so hard because even I know people look to you guys, people look to me, and they're like, they've got it all together. They're doing all these wonderful things, right? And I'm over
Yeah.
here like, I don't remember if I put garlic in my dog's meal tonight.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea. Did I do that? Did I not
Yeah.
do that? Like, she needs
Yeah.
it. It's spring, it's getting warm here. I know I need to be
Mhm.
starting it again. I don't know if I did that, right? But it is
Yeah.
these, like, how practical can we like, we really do need to make things as practical, and I think that's also part of choosing some of the
Mhm.
supplements that I mean, I don't have a shop, but the supplements that I recommend, I'm like, "Okay, what can we that is going to like hit as many bases as possible. So we're doing as few steps as possible,
Mhm.
adding the least amount of junk into the food as possible. I just appreciate that so much because that can be hard. We can definitely, even in the natural space, I've been talking to people about this recently. It's like, I see this really hard. And I actually went down the rabbit hole a little bit myself, picking supplements for myself. It's like everywhere you turn, somebody has something else to sell you and it's natural and
Yeah.
it's wonderful, but like, do you need it? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, it can be really, really overwhelming with even in the space we're in, paring down and picking and choosing like what is actually necessary for that individual animal in front of you.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just appreciate that so much. And you guys keep bringing up Milka, so I think it's time that we talk about her a little bit more. I know
Yes.
she inspired Pawdega and the journey that you've had with her, but I would love to learn just a little bit more about, like you said, you switched her to a raw food, and that's great and that's wonderful. But I think we all know that that's not 100% of what changes.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So I would just love to hear a little bit more about like Milka's actual story and journey.
Yeah, so like after we transitioned Milka to a raw food diet and we started listening more to the holistic and integrative experts, we started looking more into functional supplements and enhancing health. So looking at ways to help prevent cancer because as you know, nearly 1 in 2 dogs over the age of 10 are being diagnosed with cancer. So that was a big point for us because we were like, oh, well, we obviously want our dog to live as long as possible. So what are the experts saying about this? So we looked at, all right, incorporating antioxidants, helping her to detox, helping like just so many different areas to help prevent cancer, like such as fighting inflammation in the body. But what else would you say?
I just want to add for anyone who maybe isn't familiar with us or Milka yet, Milka is a French bulldog. And she's turning 10 years old this year, and she's amazingly healthy. I'm so grateful for it. But we started this journey with her when she was around 1 year old. So, or maybe 1 year and almost 6 months. That's when we started her wellness journey. So, and back then we very into cancer prevention because that was a really big topic in the holistic pet wellness community back then. And we actually, when on one of our trips to America, to one of the pet health conferences, we shot a documentary, a little mini documentary about pet cancer prevention. And it was just so amazing what all of these holistic vets told us about different ways that we can provide pet cancer prevention for our animal. And yeah, that really kickstarted again our interest in all of these topics. But yeah, natural flea and tick treatment was a big one as well,
Mhm.
which I think we should talk about a little later because now that we're traveling around the world, we just came back from an island in Thailand with Milka, and yeah, unfortunately, there's ticks. Yeah, so
Goodness.
we had a couple of not so pleasant surprises last week, but yeah,
She's okay.
yeah, she's okay,
Good.
but
Okay.
definitely it's a journey. I think gut health was a huge one for us as well, like learning more about gut health, probiotics, and things like that with Milka.
Well, yes. So that actually is the original topic that I asked you guys to come on about was traveling with
Hmm.
Milka because it's, my gosh, it's hard enough. Typical American. I've barely left our country. I mean, I've been outside of the country a handful of times, but it's one of those things that I think people in America, at least, we say, like, why do Americans never travel to other countries? And it's like, well, we can travel to other countries by going to other states almost, like, but
Yeah.
we can't. I mean, the culture is very different, but the culture state to state can be very different too here in America, but it's difficult enough, I guess is what I'm getting at, for me to
Hmm.
travel between states with my dog. And I'm just like, how do people travel internationally with their pets? I don't know. And then they have, all these rules, and especially the, vaccinations. And I'm
Hmm.
just like, oh my goodness, like how do you do it? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's actually not that hard. I mean, when you search online to, let's say you choose a country that you want to go to, you can always check the government website for what they require for a dog to enter into the country. And I think now we've traveled to maybe 5 different countries with Milka multiple times. So I think we've traveled internationally with her like 10 times. But the documents are actually, they're not, there's not too many documents. You definitely have to make sure you have them. And we share our travel experiences actually on our YouTube channel. So if you were interested in how to travel from America to Germany, or how to travel to the UAE, or how to
Or
travel,
Mexico, that's
yeah,
an easy
or
one actually.
yeah, Mexico was probably the easiest country that
Yeah.
we went into because they required the least documents, honestly. So, but we post all of this stuff on our YouTube channel for people to see how to actually do it, and you'd be surprised. It's not that hard, even though you would think it would be very difficult. But for us personally, it's not hard.
Yeah, but it's also because we have a small dog. So
Yeah.
if you do have a big dog, unless it's a service dog, it's gonna be a lot more complicated because you would have to put them into the cargo. So yeah, it's it depends on your dog as well. So I'll say that.
So how do you go about feeding her and getting the supplements if you're in all these different countries? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a really, really, really great question. So it
By the
depends.
way, sorry, I think also maybe we should mention we are digital nomads, so we're not just like taking vacations with
Oh
our
yes,
dog.
yes, yeah,
So we actually right now don't have a home base, which is very freeing actually. It's amazing. We're really enjoying it. So we're in Thailand right now for 6 months.
yeah. So we work remotely in different countries. So when we were in Mexico, we were there, I think, almost 3 months. Then we were in America for almost 5 to 6 months as well. So we're choosing different countries, and then we're staying there for like 2 to 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
how
the
do we
food.
feed
Okay,
Milka?
so how do we feed Milka? So it depends on the country that we're going to. So typically, America has amazing raw food out there. So we were feeding Green Juju and Solutions Pet Food. And then when we were in Germany, we were feeding
Local
a
raw
local
brand.
raw brand,
Mhm.
which was a really amazing quality, honestly.
Yeah,
But then,
but we had all her supplements with us.
yeah, we traveled all her supplements. So we traveled with a lot of supplements, actually. And it's really great because, like, for example, what just happened last week when we were on an island, on a remote island. Actually, this happened 2 times because it also happened in Mexico. She got a tick, but we had everything to help, deal with that. Pretty much anything that were to come up, we have something for it. It's not convenient, like as far as the amount of products we're traveling with, but for us, it makes us more comfortable to know that we have nearly everything that we would kind of need. As far as food, right? So some countries, the raw food scene is not really big, or they don't necessarily meet our particular standards. So,
such as Thailand, for example.
yeah, such as Thailand, for example. So the really great thing is that we have access to freeze dried raw food, which is like, for those that are not familiar, it is pretty much raw food with just the moisture removed. So it is a dry product. And all that is required from us is to just rehydrate it with water or bone broth. So that's been working. So she loves it. So it's really great.
Yeah, so we literally, like, she has her own suitcase, like
Yeah.
full-size suitcase with 6 months worth of freeze-dried raw food, and yeah, all her supplements and everything. Like, we travel with the natural flea and tick shampoo, natural flea and tick repellent. What else do we have? We have lots of homeopathics as first aid remedy kits. Yeah, and like obviously when we travel for 6 months with her, we also need to travel with like, multiple tubs of her probiotics and
Hmm.
things like that. So we have definitely simplified her health regime a lot. Now that we're traveling, we're giving her a lot more multi uh
Functional.
combi supplements.
Mhm.
So yeah, multifunctional supplements, I
Hmm.
guess, as much as possible so that we can just take less. But yeah, she's like a little person.
So I mean, yeah, I had mentioned that earlier with like trying to find products that serve so as many different functions as possible and just simplifying things. And I think maybe that is something that has evolved with you guys traveling the way you do, just kind of simplifying things for her. And I would imagine that helps you in the education part of it and in recommendations that you might have for pet parents to really keep things as easy as possible because we're all in different places, right? Like
Hmm.
there are certainly it was actually yeah, the interview already aired. My latest interview with Billy Hookman from Green Juju, and he was talking about how like much he did for Lua, right? And then when he had Maple, and he was like, "Oh, wait, I literally like." He had this thought where like everybody has plenty of time to do all this stuff for their
Hmm.
dogs,
Yeah.
and then he was like, "Oh wait, no, like I'm literally spending all of my time trying to keep this newborn alive. I can't do
Hmm.
all of this stuff for my dog anymore." And that was kind of like an epiphany to him to where like
Hmm.
not everybody has the time that I have to
Hmm.
put into my and I mean that's kind of an extreme case probably, but you know, just an example of how like we're all in different stages and life changes and we
Mhm.
have to be able to adapt. And I appreciate that that's probably changing your education piece quite a bit as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah, I mean, I I
Oh, good.
always like sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's it.
But I completely understand that because I think people just have to do what like they can actually go through with. And we're the same. We actually really appreciate, like, we used to do our own raw food, and we're so grateful that we don't have to do that anymore. And that's like the first thing we gave up because we're like, we're not about that life. And there's plenty of people that love that, and that's amazing, but we weren't necessarily one of those people. So we were like, we just really want to find a really amazing quality pre-made raw, and like we do all of our research to make sure that's good. And then we were really happy being able to feed that. And now it's like that with the freeze-dried raw. Like we found a really amazing quality, and we're happy feeding that to Milka, and we are very grateful for that.
I completely understand that. So you had mentioned earlier, Larry, about kind of, in your travels, seeing the different income levels, just what people are going through, what they can
Hmm.
afford, what we can afford and what we want to be able to give to our pets. They don't always match up, right? And I think you guys are in kind of this really cool and interesting position traveling around the globe.
Hmm.
How has your views on the pet industry just generally through or pet health and or the pet industry, how it's so different between different countries? Like, are there any insights that you guys have had during your
Yeah.
travels so far? Has it changed how you guys think about what you're doing with Pawdega, what you're doing with the education piece with your YouTube channel?
It's a really great question. It's so interesting to like be on the ground, travel to all these different countries and countries like Mexico and Thailand. that we've been to recently, seeing how like there's so many street dogs here, and the people, they really do take care of these animals. These dogs live completely different lives than dogs in America, Canada, and most of Europe, right? And these countries, dogs are truly domesticated, like they live with their humans. But these dogs in Mexico and Thailand, where we are right now, a lot of these dogs are living on the street. Like they have owners, but the dogs pretty much live on the streets. And it's such a different type of lifestyle because these dogs also look, in my opinion, so much happier, right? Like they have that freedom. But the quality of the food that a lot of these dogs eat is very low. A lot of them scavenge. So they don't even have access to like high quality nutrition, which is also quite interesting. But I wouldn't necessarily say it changes my view on how, on the things that we offer, because I do truly believe that domesticated dogs do not live like street dogs or free roaming dogs, right? Like, so I think interest on high quality nutrition for domesticated dogs are really, really important because they do not have the freedom to roam like these free roaming dogs. What would you say?
I think we should like really tell you a little more stories because like we've just been in an Airbnb where it was absolutely beautiful. It was like a little tiny home and it has windows on all four sides basically. So like we can see everything. And this Airbnb was on a property that's like a plant sanctuary. So this guy, he was like adopting plants that were
Trees.
dying and trees that were dying. And then he plants them in his property and then they grow again. And he also adopted 2 street dogs. And these dogs, it was so amazing seeing them every day. And actually, there was 3 dogs in total, but one of them wasn't his. But anyway, it was so amazing watching these 3 dogs live their life every day. And it was so insane, actually, to see Milka sitting inside the house, watching them enjoy their house outside. And like they would come and they would be like, hey, come
on the window, scratching on the window, like, hey, come outside.
Yeah, and then like Milka played with them outside plenty, but I mean, during the day it's really hot. So they would like just go into the lake that's nearby and just cool off there and then come back and be covered all in mud. And then they play and then they chase a bird and then they do this and that. And it was so amazing and beautiful to watch these dogs be outside and be so free and be allowed to do what they want to do, but then also to see that they are so aware of their surroundings. Like they never really left the property too far. They would never like run away or anything like that. And then even in the morning time, when we take Milka on a walk, like Milka has her leash that's dragging on the floor behind her, and she has her little tracker on so we can track her at all times because she's an explorer. She will run away if she gets the chance. And then these dogs would join us on our morning walk and they would come. And in Thailand, the street dogs, like real street dogs, they are very territorial. So sometimes we would not be able to actually walk Milka that far because the street dogs would come and they would bark. And that happened on the first day. The dogs from our property, they joined us on our walk. And then we got to the end of the road and then these other street dogs came and Milka was like, okay, what's happening? And then these other 2 street dogs from our property, they just ran away back to the property. And then the next day, we go down that same street and Milka has no clue. She has no clue of her surroundings. She's like, yeah, dum, 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 dum. I'm just on my walk. And these 2 property street dogs, they're like so aware of they're like
the airs go immediately up. They start walking slower.
They look around, they're like, where are these dogs? I'm not in my territory anymore. This is their territory. And it's just so interesting to watch them live, So, and to see really, wow, we've domesticated dogs. they've lived with us for so long. If Milka sees a snake, she'll go chase it. If these dogs see a snake, they will not go near that snake, you know? So some of them might, but they'll learn their lesson very fast. So it's just so interesting to watch how these dogs react. But that being said, there's also so many people over here that have even breed dogs, right? Like we've seen Maltese, for example, over here in Thailand. And these dogs also are off the leash the entire day. They don't run away. So it's so interesting that that freedom part has been so interesting to us, because I wish, like, I love nothing more than to let Milka off leash and let her explore. But I know I can't really trust her, even though with all the training that we've done, she has chased camels in the desert of Dubai before, so she just puts herself into these dangerous situations, you know? So, yeah.
It's an interesting part of health, that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about, like the actual going outside, being off leash, and for how long. I mean, we know we hear about, some of the longest living dogs. All of them lived outside. All of them had free access to the outdoors. And if you compare that with great nutrition, I think it would be so much better. But I think for like these two extremes, from what we see, like we see domesticated animals for the most part having the best nutrition, but their free roaming status is quite low. Over here, we see the animals for the most part have this really free roaming lifestyle, but the quality of nutrition that they consume is very low. So it's quite interesting to see. I think nutrition is incredibly important, and I will always advocate for high quality nutrition. But it's just so interesting to see how, these animals here live their lives, how it's so different from the Western world.
Yeah, and also like I'm just so grateful that like we get to even talk about supplements for pets, because I don't like, if I would go over here to these people and talk to them about supplements for their dogs, they would be like, yeah, okay. So, the fact that like we can all like even be interested in this whole topic of holistic pet wellness, that's just such a big privilege, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
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 What I was thinking as you were telling that story and like that contrast between those two rescue dogs and Milka is, we as humans, I mean, I think some of us, we're trying to kind of reconvene with nature and how we should be living, but we're not really. We're both
Hmm.
sitting on couches inside of four walls.
Hmm.
We're still pretty far removed from nature, and that is where we have brought our dogs with us, is pretty far removed from nature, and seeing, well, in my mind's eye, seeing those rescue street dogs with their hackles up because they know they're going into another, den's territory, versus Milka just like prancing along. I'm
Yeah.
like, that is that is to me like the epitome of the disconnect that we have with
Hmm.
nature,
Hmm.
right? Like that's, I don't know, that's just where I was thinking the whole time you were telling that story, is like that right there. That's that line, that's that delineation between
Hmm.
how living beings interact and connect with the natural world around them versus how we've decided to live.
Yes, absolutely. And also like within the last month since we've been in Thailand specifically, like, and observing these rescued property dogs, they it's been so like, I have been wondering, like, are we just like helicopter momming, like Milka, like, should I just be letting her do her thing and learn by herself a little more often? But it's so difficult because it's like, I don't want her to get hurt, So, for example, I think about cats. She has such a fixation with cats, right? So she chases them, and it's very dangerous because they can scratch her, and Frenchies, they have the big eyes. So, and, one time actually, she did get scratched by a cat in her face, which wasn't that bad, but I'm just like, how does she get to learn by herself that this is dangerous and she should not be doing it? But like, I can't just let her go to the cat because that's dangerous. So it's just such a, yeah, it's something that I've been thinking more of, like, how can we let her do more by herself and learn by herself versus like not putting her in dangerous situations.
Yeah.
And we do train her a lot. Like, she's very well trained. We do positive reinforcement with her. We do lots of treats, but she's also a Frenchie, so she's very stubborn. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's been interesting.
it is interesting. And literally just today, my dog walked out the door. The garage door was open, and she walked out into the front yard, and I'm like running behind her, and I literally said to her, I'm like, I don't, what do you think, you're free range or something? Like, what is this?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
no.
Exactly.
And she's just doing what's natural to her, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, get back inside. But I mean, of course, I'm over here like, don't run in traffic. But she's like, let me explore.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It is hard. It really is, especially because again, my dog Kim, she is. I have kind of slacked on her training some lately because again, with positive reinforcement, but it's something you do have to continue to reinforce throughout their life. And she will do what I ask her to do most of the time. But if there is another dog, there is no way and I just know that about her, right? There's no way I'm going to be able to, like, her brain is just going to shut down. That's it. Done. It's over. So we do have to have those considerations I mean, it's part of it. It's hard. I get it.
Yeah.
So, okay, it sounds like you guys are just obviously living the life, having the best time. Milka's having an amazing time learning and even reconvening with nature in some ways, which is wonderful, even though there have been some nasty tick incidents. What do you guys see like happening next for Pawdega? You mentioned you've recently started the Next Level Pet Parenting podcast, which is amazing. And I know it hasn't been that long since you expanded into the US to begin with. So what's next? Or are you guys just like, this is enough for now and we're here for you?
I think, yeah, this is a great question. I mean, now Pawdega USA has been opened for just over a year. Pawdega itself has been open for almost 5. And I think we just want to keep continuing raising awareness with the education and putting out content across different platforms such as the podcast and YouTube. And where else do we put content? Instagram and Facebook. I would say just keep raising awareness because we just have to keep the job is never over, right? There's a lot of animals out there to help, and a lot of people need our help and your help too, through this podcast, like they need these avenues of communication. So I think right now for us is to continue raising awareness, and hopefully pet parents will find us and shop with us and help improve the health of their animals.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, you guys are doing an amazing job, and I love all the content that you put out. And I'm really excited that you two were able to join me on today's episode. Where is it? It's just Pawdega everywhere, whatever social media platform they want to find you on.
Yeah, so they can find us everywhere with the name Pawdega, Pawdega, like bodega, just Paw.
Yeah.
Dega.
Yes.
Yeah. And at Pawdega.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so very. Oh, and the podcast.
The podcast is, yes.
Yeah.
So the podcast is Next Level Pet Parent, and that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you watch your podcast. And then also on YouTube, it's under our Pawdega channel.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are doing such amazing work, and I'm just really grateful that you took the time to come and talk to me and for everything that you're doing in the space to improve pets' lives. So, guys, thank you so much for being here and listening. I know that Charlie and Larry will second this. I always end by saying, please give your pet some extra love for me. And I know today, please give some extra love to your pet from Charlie and Larry with Pawdega. And guys, I will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for being here.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for having us.